ፈኖ ሬዲዮ ድምፂ ኤርትራ DC እዩ ሬዲዮ ድምፂ ኤርትራ DC ቀዳም በመንገዲ መርበብ ሓበሬታ ኣብ voiceoferitra.com ወይ ውን በመንገዲ YouTube ተቐማጡ ዋሽንግተን ዲሲን ከባቢያን ከምኡውን ንመላእ ዓለም ይፍኖ ሬዲዮ ድምፂ ኤርትራ ከመይ ከኒኹም ካብ ድምፅኹም ሬዲዮ ድምፂ ኤርትራ DC እናበልና ናይ ሎሚ ቀዳም ጥቅምቲ 31 2010 ወይ ድማ ኦክቶበር 31 2020 መደብ ሬዲዮ ድምፂ ኤርትራ እንሆ ቀዳማይ ዜና ከም መዲና ከተማ ኣስመራ ኤርትራ ቦኪልና ጋዜጠኛ ገረመስቀል ገረዝጊር ካልኣይ መግለጺ ፕሬዚደንት ሃገር ኤርትራ አቶ ኢሳያስ ኣፍወርቂ ኣብ 1999 ክኸውን እዩ ኣማጎ መርባትና ምልክታን ሓበሬታን ኣዘናግዕ ዝበልናዮ ሙዚቃን ንሰማዕትና ክህልውና እዮም ኣብዚ ናይ ሎማዓንቲ መርባትና ምሳና ሓቢርኩም ትጸንሑ ሰናይ ምክትታል ክኾነልኩም ብስም ቦርድ ድምፂ ኤርትራ DC ምንሄር ሰናይ ምክትታል ينافقك عاد ينافقك عاد ካብዚ ካብ ዋሽንግተን DC ሬዲዮ ድምፂ ኤርትራ ዝመሓላለፍ ዘሎ መደባትኩም ተከታተሉ ዘለኹም ክቡራት ሰማዕትና በመቀጠል ዜና ካብ ከተማ ኣስመራ ነው
ሰላም ዝኸበርኩም ተከታተልቲ ድምፂ ኤርትራ ከመይ ቀኒኹም እንሆ ከምቲ ልሙድ ካብዚ ካብ ከተማ ኣስመራ ዜናታት ሒዘልኩም ቀሪበ ኣለኹ ክትከታተሉ ድማ ብክብሪ ዕድም ነቲ ካብ ኢትዮጵያ ብቀጻሊ ማዕበላት ዝሳግም ዘሎ ይኹን ኣብ ውሽጢ ሃገር ዝሰፍር ዘሎ ኣንበጣ ድረበዳ ንምጥፋእ ሓያል ምርብራብን ምንጻገ መድሃኒትን ኣብ ማዕነ መቆጻል ስራሕቲ ይካየድ ኣሎ ኣብ ንኡሳን ዞባታት ዓዲ ቀይሕ ሰገናይቲ ማይ ዓይኒ ዓዲ ኳላ እምሓይሊ መንደፈራ ድባርባን ሰንዓፈን ጸረናን ስራኤ ወራራት ዕስለ ኣንበጣ ብዝተወስደ ቁልጡፍ መድሃኒት ናይ ምንጻግ ስጉምቲ ኣብ ሓፂር ግዜ መቆጻሩ ተኻይሉ እዩ ይኹን እምበር እቲ ማዕበላት ሓደ ድሕሪ ሓደ ብዘይ መኩራስ ካብ ኢትዮጵያ ይውሕዝ ብምህላው ኩሉ ሓረስታይ ኣባላት ሓይልታት ምክልኻል ኤርትራ ሞያውያን ሕርሻን ለይትን መዓልትን ኣብ ዝራእቲ ይውዕሉን ይሓድሩን ዕረፍቲ ዘህብ መድሃኒት ናይ ምንጻግ ስራሕትን የካይዱ ኣለዉ ወራር ኣንበጣ ካብ ዞባ ደቡብ ሓሊፉ ናብ ዞባ ማእከል ብምምፅእ ኣብ ዞባ ጋላነፍሒ ምምሕዳር ከባቢ ሰላዕ ዳዕሮ ዝተራእየ ዕስለ ኣንበጣ ኣብ ትሕቲ ቁፅር ክውዕል ክኢሉ እዩ እዚ ብሞተራይዝርን ብመኻይንን ዝውሰድ ዘሎ መድሃኒት ናይ ምንጻግ ስጉምቲ ኣብ ልዕሊ እቲ በራሪ ኣንበጣ ጥራይ ዘይኮነስ ክጸፍየሉ ይኽእል እዩ ተባሂሉ ኣብ ዝተጠርጠረ ቦታ ቀጻሊ መድሃኒት ይንጸግ ኣሎ በዚ መሰረት ኣብ ዞባ ሰሜናዊ ቅሕ ባሕሪ ንኡሳን ዞባታት ቃሩራ ኣፍዓበትን ሽዕብን ኣብ ውሱን ከባቢታት ዞባ ዓንሰባ ከባቢ ኣስማት ኣብ ዞባ ጋሽባርካ ድማ ኣብ ከባቢ ከርከበትን ሰልዓን ንዝተረኣየ ኩፍታ ናይ መቆጻር ስራሕ ብኣድማዕነት ተሰላሲሉ ከም ዘሎ ሚኒስትር ሕርሻ ብተወሳኺ ሓቢሩ ዋላ እኳ ካብ ኢትዮጵያ ዝሰገረ ኣንበጣ ዘራእትን መጋጫን ዝጥቀስ ጉድኣት ከይወረደ ኣብ ትሕቲ ቁፅር ይውዕል እንተሎ ጎን እዚ ሓረስቶት ዝኣኸለ ዘራእቶም ለይትን መዓልትን ክእክቡ ከም ዝግባእን የካይድዎ ከም ዘለውን ምፍላጥ ተኻይሉ ኣሎ መብዛሕትኡ ዘራእቲ ኤርትራ ጻዕዳ እኽሊ ማለት ስገምን ስርናይን ከምኡውን መሸላን ጣፍን እዩ እቲ ጻዕዳ እኽሊ ኣብ ዓፂድ ስለ ዝበፅሐን ይዕፀድ ስለ ዘሎን ዘሰትፍ እኳ እንተዘይኮነ ኣብ ገለ ማለት ኣብ መሻሉን ገለ ስርናይን ካልእ ጣፍን በትግቡእ መሰረት ኣያኸለን ዘሎ በዝኾነ በቲ መንግስቲ ካብ ነዊሕ እዋን ጀሚሩ ወረራ ኣንበጣ ክኽሰት ምዃኑ ክሕብር ብምፅንሖን እኹል ምድላዋት ብምግባሩን እቲ ዝውሰድ ዘሎ ጉድኣት ዝጥቀስ ከም ዘይኮነ ካብ ዝተፈላለየ ከባቢታት ዞባ ደቡብ ዝበፅሓልና ዘሎ ሓበሬታ ኣፍሊጡ بدرجة هاجر أفرقيا وكي شبح ሰሜናዊ ባሕሪ ዝካየድ ዘሎ ስራሓት ጽርግያ ብልዑል ናህሪ ወሲኹ እቲ ጽርግያ ካብቲ ዝነበሮ ይሰፍሕን ዛጌት ብሰንኪ ሓያል ክራናት ንሓያለ ዓመታት ዝቐጸለ ንድፋን ኣስተተስዓ ቢንተታትን ተሰሪግሎም እዞም ዓበይቲ ማሽነሪታት ሒዞም ኣብቲ ጸደርትን ኣጻድፍን ስራሓት ጽርግያ ዝሰላሰሉ ዘሎ መንእሰያት ኣባላት ማሽነሪ ፕሮጀክት ዓዲ ሃለቆ ቁፅር 2 ክኾኑ ከለዉ ብዝተፈላለየ ኣዝዩ ዓሚቕ ትምህርትን ስልጠናን ዝረኸቡ ካብ ዝተፈላለያ ዙርያታት ዝወፁ መንእሰያት እዮም እዚ ኣብ 2000 ዓመተ ምህረት ዝተሃንጸ ናይ ቀጥራን ጽርግያ ሰረጀቃ ሸባሕ ብወፍሪ ዋርሳይ ካልኦ ዝተሃንጸ ኮይኑ ሕጂ ኣብዚ እዋን እዚ ግን ብዝማዕበለ ኣገባብ ይሰፍሕ ኣሎ ሰሜናዊ ባሕሪ ሎሚ ሕሩም ሕዛቲ ብምዃኑ ዝኾነ ጥሪት ኮነ ሕርሻዊ ወይ ሞጋሰ ኣይካየደሉን እዩ ዝርግሕኡ ብሰሜን ካብ ከባቢ ገለብን ምሕላብን ጀሚሩ ንደቡብ ክሳብ ርእሲ ዓድን ዓዲ ሽማን ድርፈን ዝበፅሕ ኮይኑ ብምብራቅ እውን ካብ ማለት ካብ ፍግረትን ማይ ውዕይን ሰሎሞናን ጀሚሩ ንምዕራብ ክሳብ ቀላቅል ወርቂ ዛግርን ዓናግርን ዝዳዋብዩ ቀጠልያ ቅናት ኤርትራ ተባሂሉ ዝፍለጥ ሰሜናዊ ባሕሪ ሎሚ መደበር ዝተፈላለየ ኣዕዋፍን ሓያለ እንስሳት ዘገዳምን ኮይኑሎ ኣብ ቀጻሊ ድማ ልዑል መስሕብ ቱሪዝም ከም ዝኸውን ተኣሚኑሉ ኣሎ ብጉጅለ ተጠርኒፎም ኣብ ፕሮጀክት ሕርሻ ተሰነይ ዓሊ ግድር ዘልምዑ ዘለዉ 54 ሓርበኛታት ስንኩላን ኩናት ኤርትራ ለዘበን ኣልቢዖሞ ካብ ዘለዉ ዘራእቲ ብርኩት ዝበለ ምህርቲ ክሓፍሱ ልዑል ትፅቢት ኣሕዲሮም ከም ዘለዉ ኣብዚ ሰሙን ዝገሊፆም እዞም ሓርበኛታት ስንኩላን ሕርሻኦም ብመስኖም ክረማትን ስለ ዘልምዑ ኣቐድም ኣቢሉ እውን ብርትዓዊ ዋጋ ኣገልግሎት ማሕረሰ ዝህባ ናይ መንግስቲ ትራክተራት ኣብ ግዜኡ ስለ ዝረኸቡን ሙሩፅ ዘርኢ ስለ ዝተጠቐሙን ሕርሻኦም ኣብ ዘተኣማምን ደረጃ በፂሑ ከም ዘሎ ኣገንዚቦም ሃገራዊ ማሕበር ሓርበኛታት ስንኩላን ኩናት ኤርትራ ኣቐድም ኣቢሉ ነዞም 54 ብማሕበር ዝተጠርነፉ ኣባላቱ ስርሖም ብግቡእ ምእንቲ ከሰላስሉ ነፍሲ ወከፎም 15,000 ናቕፋ ወለድ ዘይብሉ ልቃሕ ብምሃቡ ኣብ ሕርሻኦም ዕውታት ኮይኖም ከም ዘለዉ ኣፍሊጦም ንሳቶም ኣብዚ እዋን እዚ 60 ሄክታር መሸላ ስንስን ዕፉንን ኣሕምልትን ኣልሚዖም ኣለዉ መንግስቲ ምንጪ ቁጠባዊ እቶት ስንኩላን ኩናትን ንምሕያል ኣብ ዝሓለፈ ዓመታት ዓበይቲ ስራሓት ከም ዝሰላሰለ ዝፍለጥ ኮይኑ ብፍላይ ድማ ኣብ ንዞባት ተሰነይ ኣብ ዝተፈላለየ ጽላታት ዝተዋፈሩ ናይ ኩናት ስንኩላን ተጠቀምቲ ጸጋታት እቲ ከባቢ ብምዃን ህይወቶምን ህይወት ስድራ ቤቶምን ብጽቡቕ ኣብ ምምራሕ ከም ዝርከቡ ንምፍላጥ ተኻኢሉ ኣሎ ብሰንኪ ለበዳ ኮሮና ቫይረስ መዓልታዊ ኮነ ወርሓዊ ዝረኽብዎ ዝነበሩ እቶት ዝተኸልፎም ጽጉማት ወገናት ነዛ ሓጻር እዋን ብስእነት ከይጽገሙ ምእንቲ ኣብ ውሽጢ ሃገር ዝርከብ ነፍሲ ወከፍ ዜጋ ከምኡውን ነፍሲ ወከፍ ዓዲ ብውሱን ዓቕምታቶም ክገብሩ ዝጸንሑ ገንዘባውን ዓይነታዊ ሓገዛት ከም ወትሩ ኣብዚ ሰሙን እዚ እውን ቀፂሉ ይቐኒሎም እዚ መሰረት ኣብ ዞባ ደቡብ ዞባ ድባርባ ዓደታት ሰምዓሰም 390,000 ናቕፋ ሽከቴ 290,000 ናቕፋ ሳኺታ 78,000 ናቕፋ ዓዲ ገዳ ድማ 49,000 ናቕፋ ብምውፃእ ማለት ብምምሕዳር ንዝተፈላለያ ጽጉማት ስድራ ቤታት ተመኻሪሕሎም ብኻልእ ወገን ድማ ኣብ ዞባ ዓረዛ ሰራሕተኛታት መንግስትን ካልኦት ዝተፈላለዩ ወገናትን ዘዋፅዎ ኣብ 100,000 ናቕፋ ንስድራ ሰባታት ተኸፋፊሉ እዚ ከምዚ ኢሉ እንከሎ ኣብ ዞባ ሰረጀቃ ምምሕዳር ከባቢ ወርቂ ብነበረ ማለት ገበርቲ ሰናይ ዝተለገሰ ልዕሊ 400,000 ናቕፋ ብምምሕዳር ንዝተፈላለያ ጽጉማት ስድራ ቤታት ተዓዲሉ ብኻልእ ወገን ድማ ደቀም ሓረ ሓንቲ ገባሪት ሰናይ ስድራ ቤት 15 ኩንታል እኽሊ ብምሕዳር ዝተጸንዓ ንዝተላለያ ጽጉማት ወገናት ከፋፊላ ዘይካዝያ ብምሕዳር ከባቢ ትኹል ከባቢ ደቀም ሓረ ዜጋታት ዘዋፅዎ 41,300 ናቕፋ ብተመሳሳሊ ጽጉማት ወገናትን ስድራ ስዋዕትን ኣብ ሰሙን እዚ ተዓዲሉ ካልእ ኤሪትሪያን ዩኒቲ ወርልድ ዋይድ ኢፒኤልኤፍ-1 ኣብ ዝተባሃለ ጉጅለ ፓልቶክ ዝተጠርነፉ ኤርትራውያን 3,701 ዩሮ ንስድራ ስዋዕት ከም ዘበርከቱ ካብ ኤምባሲ ኤርትራ ኣብ ዓባይ ብሪጣንያን ሰሜን ኣየርላንድ ዝበፅሐ ሓበሬታ ኣፍሊጡ ኣብ ካልእ ዜና ኣብዚ ኣብ ውሽጢ ሃገር ዝተፈላለዩ ትካላትን ውልቀ ሰባትን ኮቪድ-19 ንምክልኻል ኣብ ዝካየድ ዘሎ ፃዕሪ ዝውዕል ልዕሊ 100,000 ናቕፋ ሚኒስትሪ ጥዕና ኣበርኪቶም ኣለዉ ሳላ ኣብ ውሽጥን ወፃእን ዝርከቡ ዜጋታት ብዝገብርዎ ዘለዉ ቀጻልን ዘየቋርፅን ሓገዛት መንግስት ኤርትራ በሐፈሻ ምን ይሰጥዕና ማብሰላይ ኣብ ኩለን ጆባት ኤርትራ ዝተኸፍታ ልዕሊ 9 ማእከላት መወሸብ ዝርከቡ ተወሸብቲ ኣብ ኩሉ መነባብሮም ከይተጸገሙ መዓልቱ ውሽቦም ይፍጽሙ ከም ዘለውን ብኸጻሊ ብዝግበረሎም ዘሎ ናብየትን ዝወሃቦም ዘሎ ሕክምናዊ ክንክንን ዝኾነ ናይ ሞት ትርኢዮ ከም ዘጋጠመ ዝፍለጥ እዩ እዚ ከምዚ ኢሉ እንከሎ ኣብዚ ሰሙን እዚ ኣብ ዞባታት ደቡብ ጋሽባርካን አንሰባን ኣብ ዝርከቡ መወሸብ ማእከላት ተወሺቦም ዝጸንሑ ዜጋታት ብዝተገብረ ናይ ላቦራቶሪ ምርመራ 6 ዜጋታት ብኮሮና ቫይረስ ተታሒዞም ጸኒሖም ብዝርዝር ክረን ከሎ ድማ 4 ኣብ መወሸብ ማእከል ሰንዓፈ 1 ኣብ መወሸብ ማእከል አንቶረ ከምኡውን ኣብ ሓመል ማለት ተወሺቦም ጸኒሖም ብምልኦም ድማ ኣብዚ ቀርባ መዓልታት ካብ ኢትዮጵያን ሱዳንን ዝተመልሲዮም እዚ ከምዚ ኢሉ እንከሎ ኣብ ሆስፒታላት ዞባ ደቡብን ዞባ ጋሽባርካን ተዓቂቦም ሕክምናዊ ክንክን ክግበረሎም ካብ ዝጸንሑ 21 ዜጋታት ሕክምናዊ ክንክን ክግበረሎም ድሕሪ ጽባሕ ሓውዮም ነናቤቶም ተፋንዮም ኣለዉ ኣብ ኤርትራ ክሳብ ሕጂ ብጠቕላላ ብኮሮና ቫይረስ ዝተታሕዙ ዜጋታት ክሳብ ሎሚ 433 ዝበፅሑ ክኾኑ እንከለዉ ካብኦም 412 ዝተገበረሎም ሕክምናዊ ክንክን ሓውዮም ተፋንዮም ኣለዉ ኣብዚ እዋን እዚ ድማ 51 ዜጋታት ገና ግዳይ እቲ ቫይረስ ኮይኖም ኣብ ሆስፒታላት ተዓቂቦም ይርከቡ ኣለዉ ካብ ከረን 65 ኪሎሜትር ርሕqa ኣብ ትርከብ ሃበሮ ካብ ከረን ክዝርጋሕ ዝጸንሐ መስመር ኤሌክትሪክ ኣብ ምዝዛም በፂሑስ ማእከል ዞባ ሃበሮ ኣብ ዝኾነት ዓረታይ ዓንድታት ኤሌክትሪክ ኣብ ምዝርጋሕን ቆጸርቲ ሃልኪ ኤሌክትሪክ ኣብ ምእታውን ተበፂሑ ከም ዘሎ ምምሕዳር ዞባ ሃበሮ ትማል ዓርቢ ኣብ ዝሃቦ ሓበሬታ ኣፍሊጡ እዚ ከምዚ ኢሉ እንከሎ ኣብ ዞባ ሃበሮ ኣብ ምምሕዳር ከባቢታት ቃበል ገለትን ፍልፍልን ተመሳሳሊ ምዝርጋሕ ኤሌክትሪክ ይካየድ ኣሎ ዞባ ሃበሮ ቅድመ ናጽነት ዝኾነ ይኹን ማሕበራዊ ኣገልግሎት ከም ዝጸንሐን ድሕሪ ናጽነት ግን ኩለን ፋሒለን ዝነበራ ዓድታትን ተቐማጦንን ኣብ ዝተፈላለዩ ማእከላይ ቦታታት ተጸኒፈን ይርከባ ሳላ ዝተጸነፉ ድማ ሎሚ ኣብ እዋን እዚ ካብ መዋዕለ ህጻናት ክሳብ ካልኣይ ደረጃ ዝዝርግሓ ኣብያተ ትምህርቲ ከምኡ ሆስፒታልን ብርክት ዝበላ ናይ ንግዲ ትካላትን ተመሰሪተን ከም ዘለዋ ንምፍላጥ ተኻኢሉ ኣሎ ኣብ ሆስፒታል ኣቁርደት መነጽር ዓይኒ እተፍሪ ማሽን ብምትእትታዋ ነበርትን ዞባ ኣቁርደት ሕክምና ዓይኒ ይኹን ዘተኣማምን ማለት ዝተኣዘዝ ዘሎ መነጽር ንምርካብ ዝነበሮም ጸገም ሙሉእ ብሙሉእ ከም ዝተወገደ ምምሕዳር ሆስፒታል ኣቁርደት ኣብ ሰሙን ዝሓቢሩ ኣብ ዞባ ኣቁርደት ዜጋታት ሕክምና ዓይኒ ንምግባር ይኹን ዝተኣዘዝ ዘሎ መነጽር ንምርካብ ናብ ከተማታት ባረንቱን ኣቁርደትን እዮም ክጓዓዙ ጸኒሖም ኣብዚ ግዜ እዚ ድማ ኣብ ሕክምና ዓይኒ ኣቁርደት መጥባሕቲ ዓይኒ ዘጠቃለለ ኣገልግሎት ዝወሃብ ክኸውን ከሎ እታ ማሽን እተፍሪ መነጽር ዓይኒ ድማ ንሕሙማት ብናጻ ከም ዝዕደል እቲ ሆስፒታል ብተወሳኺ ገሊጹ ኣብ ኤርትራ ኣብ እዋን እዚ ሙሉእ ኣገልግሎት ሕክምና ዓይንን መጥባሕቲ ዓይንን መነጽራት ዘፍርያ ማሽናትን ኣብ ኩለን ሆስፒታላት ተዘርጊሐን ከም ዝርከባ ንምፍላጥ ተኻኢሉ ኣሎ ኣብዚ ኣብ ከተማ ኣስመራ ካብ ነዊሕ እዋን ብማሕበር ዝተጠርነፉ ማሕበር ኣፈይቲ ጸባ ዞባ ማእከል ቀረብ ጸባ ንምዕባይን ጠለብ ዕዳጋ ንምምላእን ብዝሓየለ ክሰርሕ ክብል ኣብዚ ሰሙን እዚ እቲ ማሕበር ገሊጹ ኣሎ 250 ኣባላት ዝሓቆፈ ማሕበር ኣፈይቲ ጸባ ዞባ ማእከል መዓልታዊ ናብ ፋብሪካ ጸባ ኣስመራ ኣስታት 20,000 ሊትሮ ጸባ ብምልኣኽ ኣብ ዝሰሓተ ደረጃ ዝርከብ ማሕበር እዩ ብደረጃ ሃገር ክረአ እንከሎ ኣብ ዞባ ኢላበርኤድ ንኡሳን ዞባታት መንደፈራት ድባርባ ደቂ መሓርን ዝፈል ጸባ ዝያዳ ልዕሊ ኩሉ ጠለባት ህዝቢ ኣብ ምምላእ ይርከብ ኣሎ ብዝእዋን እዚ ኣብ ቀረባ ዓመታት ሙሉእ ጠለብ ህዝቢ ከማልኣ ትፅቢት ዝግበረለን ኣብ ትሕቲ ኮርፖሬሽን ጥሪትን ዘባትን ኤርትራ ዝፋረያ ዘለዋ ናይ ጸባ ከብትን ናቱ መቐጸልታ ዝኾነ ኣብ ካልኦት ከባቢታት ክጅመር ተወጢኑ ኣብ ዘሎ መደባት ምፍራይ ጸባን ልዑል ትፅቢት ይግበር ኣሎ እዘን ኣብ ሓልሓለ ዝርከባ ናይ ጸባ ከብቲ ድማ ኣብ 300 ክኾና ከለዋ ኣብዚ እዋን ግሬታ ኣብ 3,000 ክኾና ከለዋ መዓልታዊ 50,000 ሊትሮ ናብ ማለት ጸባ ክሕለባ ጀሚረን ኣለዋ ኣብ ሰሙን እዚ ኣብ ዞባ ሽዕብ ዝርከባ ዘኽተማት ባህርያዊ ስንክልናን ዘለዎም ቆልዑን ኣረጋውያንን ዝኣልየ 18 ስድራቤታት ብዋጋ 180,000 ናቕፋ ብዝተዓደዳ ጥሪት ተጣይሰን እዘን ብሚኒስትሪ ማሕበራዊ ድሕነትን ዝተጣየሳ 18 ስድራቤታት ኣቐድም ኣቢሉ ብመራሕቲ ኮሚቴታት ዓዲ ዝተጸንዓን ዝተለለያን እየን كان علامة نايت ندب إذن صدمات الزختمات أرقاويان زاليا سدرابيتات رئيسان كإذن درجة معبال المنسحيو تنبوا قاميتين سمانا شحنا غفا تعدقا يتعدلين طريق دما فلبدعين نسعانيان زتقال مخانا من السعيون محبرة ودحنة ناقليتهم إذن حدث كدرلنا عصر شمونت زختماتين سنقلان أرقاويان زاليا سدرابيتات أبن الزوبة شعب بطريقين مقاسن بحرشان كما حضرات صنحيان أبن الزوبة نقصى أب روبا وقريت زترخبة من شناي بحري نايموائل سجن نقرب ماي كرابي حزب النقصان كرابيان بمولو حدشي وترخيبنا لنا قبلو تقمات نقصى أب صبر زحاب وصن قليسان بروجكت طويل ستة ماي كتما نقصان كرابيان أب استمدبو لقزي كزازن منقستي بعبيو نمرتين صرحت نتات منقستن دما كساتف وض صرحو وفرا وصرحات موقعات مسمرات ناين مزرق عشان بقطعتن زتقال البروجكت أبتعنون رؤي لوطي كان زنفه زلهم امنت قليسان زي كاكل تشحن عسر شمونتن جميرو أبروبا وقرأ كاكاد فنحي بروجكت سوريسيو تماي أبزور حزة تزازيميو هزبي كتما نقفان كبابيان سوريسيو تماي كركب دقيعهم هزبي نقفان كبابيان ننويح زمانات سرياتو زي تحلو ما يكساتي بمسنحو عددا ما يولد حمامات خون مسنحو زحلفة من قليسان من باري زذكاريو أما ودا أساس خبركم تخطى تلتدم في إرترا أبن الزبا عد قيح كابكتما عد قيح بحرة أبيلو ناكتن بخاخات زو السودة تشرقيا ببرتع كرامات تباليشي وبنسنحو زبتنا عدتا بوفرة بنسقان تتحاد المزكن زرقيا رم الله الزنا عبد الرسم أبو عزيا سقا مقوين تصنح السرقيا حرة بخاخات بوجهة نبرت عدسات منكب مرقاتن انبخاخات تسجينو من محدار كبابي انبخاخات كابي عد قيح نشينخ نعراب 20 كيلومتر بحرات تركب عديام قالوا عندما ابن الزبا دكن حري ابن محدارات كبابي ما عدادان وتحن بكرامة تبلاشي سنح مسمر مبعزيا بوفرة هزبي تسجين الله بعرف خبركم تخطاطل تدن تيرترا نلو مزدال خوزينا بزي تفتشي من لازم تصونا مكساب داخل سلام انتعنا معكم يخون تحن كنيو
was probably the time when the government of Ethiopia, or at least the administrative region of Tigray, officially announced a new border, or it came up with a document outlining the borders of that particular region. And according to the statement, the official statement, which was published in newspapers everywhere in the country, it took more than 3 years to prepare that map, meaning that the drawing of the map started in 1995 at least. Why would an administrative region in one of the regions of Ethiopia redraw international boundaries and start drawing boundaries without even the consent of the people who are concerned, the people of Tigray, the people of Ethiopia, and most of all, Eritrea and its own people? Now, we've been talking about the border issues for so many years before 1997. We had established committees at the regional level on the administrative areas on our borders or common borders. We finally formed a high-level commission involving the defense, security, and political institutions of both governments to find a solution to this issue. The Ethiopian government consistently was saying that it has not completed its study or research on the border between Eritrea and Ethiopia. One very paradoxical development at that time was the introduction of the new currency of Ethiopia. The new currency was introduced on the assumption that the older currency had a map of Ethiopia embossed in the currency, which included Eritrea as part of Ethiopia. Now, the new currency was introduced with a new map of Ethiopia. The new map of Ethiopia does not incorporate the new administrative map of the Tigray region, which was done since 1995 up until 1997. There was a clear contradiction on the approach of dealing with the border issue. There was no conclusive position made by the Ethiopian government when we had a number of committees working together to bilaterally and amicably find a solution to the problem. 1997 was a time when there were incursions, organized incursions of regular troops crossing the border, dismantling administration and posting their own administrations. That triggered the problem. We did not overreact. We didn't react at all. My first reaction was to write a letter to the Prime Minister asking him to use his wisdom to refrain from using force to solve problems. And that's made public, was public at the time. That kind of using force to resolve the border issue continued in 1998, January. Again, another incident happened where troops had to move in, dismantle an administration in the southernmost tip of our country, and then impose their own administration. We complained, and we called for the Joint Commission to find a solution to that problem. It was not possible because we were told that the government and its institutions are working on a new document and trying to clearly identify where the borders of the two countries lie. We were waiting with patience. Unfortunately, things deteriorated. The government moved more to impose policies of repression, dismantling administration, removing populations from their village, which I think at the end of the day, 1998 provoked a reaction. And that reaction was not an overreaction on to my understanding. We tried to show restraint, but again, the fact that the Parliament of Ethiopia on May 13th announced or declared war was what internationalized the issue. We didn't even at that point want to have the issue out of a bilateral engagement. I again called on the Prime Minister, asked him what the wisdom was to go to the Parliament, which doesn't know anything about the situation and the events, to declare war. It could have been resolved quietly, bilaterally, without making too much fanfare. Unfortunately, the choice of the government of Ethiopia was to declare war using the Parliament as a vehicle. And that was when the attention of the international community was called at the conflict. I hope I have tried to go beyond what I understood to be a question and answer our position as far as 1997 and the incidents are concerned. The second point was...
Do you see this, I understand what happened prior to 97, in 97, and I respect that, but do you see this as well, as when this conflict started erupting, that the two governments, that your government and the government, and Ethiopia's government, could not resolve this in part because you were so close at one point that it's a fight in the family at all?
I don't know if I have an answer to that, but again, I have tried to give an explanation of the events prior to 1997 and after 1997. How that was influenced by the intimate relationship we had, I don't know.
Gregory Copley from Defence and Foreign Affairs Daily. Now that the accords seem to be in the offing, will Eritrea stop funding and supporting the Oromo Liberation Front and the EPRP and other internal Ethiopian groups?
I would be dealing with that question with the assumption that you're saying we are supporting the movements you mentioned. We are not supporting them. Our policies towards these organizations will not change the situation in Ethiopia in any way unless there is an internal circumstance that would be influencing the government, opposition political groups, and external intervention might not mean much. These groups have been there all the way. The Oromo was there 1995. After 1995, we worked hard We worked together with the TPLF to bring about the involvement of the OLF in the transition, and after the transition, unfortunately, that did not work. The relationship fell apart, and the OLF withdrew, and that was it. The opposition groups everywhere in Ethiopia, in the Afar region, to mention, in fact, 1997, when Ethiopian troops had to move into Abadime, it was in hot pursuit of what they called was an opposition armed group in the Afar region. And we were asked to collaborate with the government to cordon that group that was fighting the government in the Afar region. The Somalis have been there fighting all the way, even though the events in the Ogaden were camouflaged or overshadowed by the problems in Somalia proper. These things have been there. The question now is not the military support these people are getting, it's the political solution that is required to allow the participation of all groups in Ethiopia, Oromos, Amharas, Tigrayans, Somalis, Afars, and other groups. Has the government been successful in doing that? This is not my business to comment about. Is the government willing to deal with these issues in a manner that will contribute to the stability of Ethiopia? Again, this is a business of the government in Addis Ababa. It's not our business to get involved in this matter. Tactically, people might assume that it's wise, it would benefit Eritrea to support these groups militarily at this point in time. We have said whatever we do, whatever we give in terms of moral support to these people will not change the reality in Ethiopia unless there is a situation which guarantees or warrants that a change should come by opposition forces or the government for that matter. Thank you.
With CNN International, what is it that makes you cautiously optimistic? And do you think the Prime Minister of Ethiopia now works more closely with the Parliament to prevent things from becoming undone?
Well, I think we have a justifiable reason to be cautious about this matter. When the framework agreement came about, it was a general document with a number of issues that were ambiguous to our understanding, and we had to ask questions, and I think it was fair to say also that Ethiopia had reason to ask questions. The government in Ethiopia did not even raise questions at that moment. It readily accepted the document. We said we need time, we will have to ask questions because it was a general document. Now, leaving aside the developments of the last 12 months until the summit was held in Algiers, the modalities for the implementation clarified a number of issues. And we felt it was logical to accept the modalities. We already had accepted the framework in February, but again, the summit brought a document that clarified a number of issues and made it possible for both of us to see through the modalities that the implementation will take place in a clearly defined time frame and procedures. Now, finally, the OAU, the Algerian government, the United Nations, and the United States government brought in their experts, military, legal, political, and technical experts to see that they produce a document, they called it the technical arrangements. The technical arrangements document has not left any stone unturned to my understanding. It talks in detail, it's a very clear document. It wouldn't give Eritrea or Ethiopia any room for maneuver. The first minute I was handed over the document, it took me about 10 minutes to read the document, and I said, well, this is almost a perfect document, and there is no room for maneuvering, asking questions or demanding clarifications on any issue put in that document. I refrained from saying I accept the document because politically or as a matter of courtesy, I will have to say I will study the document with my experts and come back to you with an answer. I had to take time and go sleep for about 2 hours and come back again to tell the delegation that we officially have accepted the document. There was no reason to delay. We have 3 documents: the framework agreement, the modalities of implementation, and the technical arrangements, which includes details of implementing the arrangement. Now, Ethiopia is said to have asked time to study the document. They have put a number of questions. I don't exactly know the content of those questions. they still have not come up clear on their acceptance of this technical document. And that warrants a cautious optimism, in my opinion.
My name is Adanich. I'm from Voice of America. In fact, Ethiopia is saying that it doesn't believe Eritrea accepts the peace plan. Mr. Abai Zahaye gave a speech to Ethiopian community last week, and he said that if Eritrea says it accepts it, it's because it's weakened, or maybe it's trying to get time. And he said Ethiopia's first option would be to continue with the preparation for war, and only if Eritrea accepts everything Ethiopia says, then the peace plan, Ethiopia could take it as a second option. And he said that, to use his words, Ethiopia must break Eritrea's spinal cord. And what's your response to that?
I don't know, I would be laughing and probably amusing myself about these statements that have come from Minister or Mr. Abai Zahaye. Ethiopia does not believe. This is a perception on the part of Ethiopia. We have officially, through a written letter by me to the current chairman of the OAU and everybody else, accepted all the documents. Why can't the government of Ethiopia believe that Eritrea has accepted the documents put forward by everybody else? Why does he want to believe that Eritrea has not accepted this document? What guarantees does he want to believe ultimately that Eritrea has accepted this document? As to the statements coming up, I don't take them seriously. The problem is this government banked on Eritrea's refusal or rejection of any arrangement for a peaceful solution. And this was again a perception. They wanted Eritrea to reject, to have a justification for continuing the war, misleading the Ethiopian people and particularly the people in Tigray. They want a justification for continuation of war. Why? This is a domestic political problem for the government. The government wants a justification for its survival. It wants to continue to survive by telling people that there is an external threat, there is a conflict with Eritrea. We are not in the business of giving this government an excuse to mislead its people and continue to war. Now, whether Eritrea is weak or not is not the business of the government there. Why should they bother about our weakness or strength? It doesn't have any bearing on the substance of the matter that is put forward as a solution to the conflict we have, and that is a border conflict. Whether we are weak or strong doesn't matter. I think the events of the last 15 months have been very crystal clear, and I don't think there is anyone having the illusion to believe that Eritrea is weak at this point in time, and that's one of the reasons why it has accepted the modalities and the technical arrangement. I wouldn't be interested in talking about our capability to defend our sovereign country and our military capability in a number of issues. It doesn't make any sense at all. Talking about military capabilities and bragging about what one can do and what one cannot do does not make any sense at all. It's a senseless logic of people who have their own perceptions about this conflict. I won't challenge Abai Zahaye about what I could do on the ground militarily or what he could do on the ground. What does it mean, after all? Does it make any sense? We're talking about a solution to a conflict, a border conflict. And we'll have to deal with that without regards to whether the other party is militarily weak or strong, whether the other party has got planes, tanks, artillery on the ground. It doesn't make any sense to me, and I think any observer who's followed developments the last 15 months clearly knows the situation on the ground. I wouldn't bargain on the assumption that I am strong or weak militarily. I would like to find a way and judge the proposals coming from anywhere on their merits, not on my capability to defend or on my military resources. And again, the call for military preparation on the part of the TPLF regime in Ethiopia is an illusion.
Mr. President, my name is Frank Smythe from nationalcapital.com. Ethiopian diplomats say that the reason they believe that Eritrea has not accepted the OAU framework and the modalities is because Eritrea continues to demand compensation for Eritrean nationals and their property that's been confiscated as part of the deportees that were expelled from Ethiopia last year. So could you clarify for us, is Eritrea pursuing this demand parallel to the peace process, or is this a condition, as you see it, to the OAU plan and to the modalities?
Did you say that Eritrea has not accepted the framework agreement?
Ethiopian diplomats claim that Eritrea has not accepted the framework because of this point.
Again, I would like to correct that and say we have officially accepted the framework agreement in February through a written document to the then chairman of the OAU. We have accepted the modalities in public during the summit in Algiers. We have accepted the technical arrangements through an official letter sent to the current chairman of the OAU. Now, I don't think there is any illusion as far as that is concerned. Now, in Algiers, we mentioned that among other issues, because that is also mentioned in the framework agreement, the humanitarian aspect or the humanitarian dimension and the consequences of the conflict between the two countries is supposedly part of the deal or the arrangement as far as the framework is concerned. And we mentioned the fact that we have more than 60,000 of our population expelled illegally from Ethiopia, innocent civilians expelled, but again, the sad thing about their expulsion is that they were humiliated, and their property, which amounts to about $800 million, is confiscated. Whether that is part of the deal or not, I wouldn't bother about the border issue. The border issue could be resolved by demarcation or by what we can now see as a technical arrangement for the resolution. But this case remains to be unresolved. There are 60,000 people expelled illegally and their property confiscated. We have the right and an obligation to all the time raise this issue. This is not a precondition. It will not be a precondition now. It will not be a precondition tomorrow, as we would like to see the border demarcated without preconditions. But again, we will raise this matter as a matter of human rights, a matter of right for every citizen living in Ethiopia to have his property and family and livelihood protected. When this conflict is resolved by delimitation or demarcation, we will be asking the question again. We have to defend our citizens. We have to ask for the compensation of the money and the assets confiscated by this government. We have to ask for their human rights, the humiliation, the separation of families, the imprisonment and detention of family members, the dismemberment of communities will have to be raised, and we will continue to raise this matter. Not as a precondition, but as a basic humanitarian issue and an issue of human rights.
Voice of America. You both claim to have accepted the peace plan in principle, but it appears that both countries are still engaging in a propaganda war. You've just laid out some, points, accusations against Ethiopia. If we go back last week, the ICRC claimed that Ethiopia had allowed them access to Eritrean prisoners of war, but Eritrea hasn't returned that courtesy. So it seems there's a dissonance between what you're claiming and what you're actually doing.
I think that there is a way of understanding the situation. You would like to understand it that both parties have not accepted, both parties have done this and that, both parties are doing this and that. I mean, you have to be fair in your judgment for your own integrity, for your own credibility to say that this is black and this is white, this is right and that is wrong. Now, there is no reason why one should mix the issue of the ICRC with the present conflict. I don't see any reason. In that, I have heard a statement coming from the president of the ICRC, who never mentioned to me that he wanted to see the prisoners of war on our side. He never mentioned it. He went to Addis and a statement came from the ICRC saying that the president was allowed to see prisoners of war, not all of them, in Ethiopia, Eritrean prisoners of war, but was not allowed to see Ethiopian prisoners of war. I met him early in the morning. I was asked to fly and travel for miles to see him at about 9 o'clock in the morning. He never mentioned to me anything about prisoners of war. But again, that has not it has no bearing on the issue at stake, the conflict between Eritrea and Ethiopia. We should bring about issues that have no relevance to the main issue and try to confuse people or obscure the real issues from imaginations and unreal issues. If the ICRC has to deal with us and is asking for us to sign the convention, this is not the time to discuss about the convention. It's none of their business to oblige us to talk about the convention. The convention is another matter. I know a number of states who are violating their people's human rights, violating international law by mistreating prisoners of war. We have the best and the most excellent track record as far as prisoners of war are concerned. We have released a number of prisoners early as a sign of good gesture to the Ethiopian government. No prisoner of war from our army has been released on the part of Ethiopia. We have more than 1,500 Eritreans under detention, civilians, students as well. No one has talked about this matter. Whenever you point a finger at Eritrea or Ethiopia, be fair in your judgment and your assessment about who is accepting and who is not accepting, who is doing right and who is doing wrong.
My name is Mawa. I'm from Gapat Ethiopia newspaper organization. My question is, this press has been pressing you and the Ethiopian Prime Minister Meles Zenawi that you are the most high IQ leaders of Africa and you are going to bring peace to Africa. You are the light of Africa, and we have been hearing this in this room and elsewhere. But the war that has, in Mengistu's time, we said Mengistu was a monster. He brought us war, bloodshed, and we cry for freedom and peace for Africa, for Ethiopia. And when you two came, to power, we were expecting peace and stability and unity. Not even for Ethiopia, for the whole of Africa. But what comes now is war, bloodshed, disappearance, detentions, and it is not the wish of the Eritrean people and the Ethiopian people. It is the wish, the conflict of the two leaders. It's not the wish of the two nations. It is the wish of two. When the leaders are in conflict, we push the people to go to war. Nobody has asked Ethiopian people, do they wish to go to war for a piece of land? Did anybody ask the Eritrean people, do they want a war because of a piece of land? No. It is our leaders. And we beg you two leaders to stop this war. We don't want war, we want peace, we want unity, not only for Ethiopia, Eritrea, but it is for the whole of Africa. We have to be united. How many years and how many centuries can we go for war? And I think both of you have shown us not what we expected. It has to change. We can't go like this.
I have no comment. No problem. I have said enough to not deal with this matter.
Mr. President, my name is Talal Haj from Al Jazeera satellite channel in Qatar. What are the prospects of you two meeting, two leaders of Ethiopia and Eritrea, and working out your conflicts? My second question about the port of Assab. The original agreement to stipulate for free access for the Ethiopian. Now Ethiopians are also accusing you for reneging on this. What's the prospect of allowing them free access through the new agreement? Thank you.
On the first question, I think I won't dwell on details, but I can assure you that at the height of the conflict in mid-1998, May, after Even the Ethiopian parliament declared we were talking over the telephone with the Prime Minister, we were exchanging faxes. Suddenly, that was interrupted. The Prime Minister did not want to talk to me when he said he didn't want to see the color of the eyes of, or he doesn't like the color of the eyes of Eritreans. That was his statement. Again, now, if there is an opportunity for any meeting, I wouldn't be shying from any meeting. Why should I? I have no reason, I have no problem. If I have a case to make, I would meet not only the Prime Minister or any official. We have made our position clear on a number of occasions that at any level, when there is a meeting desired or organized, we would be there. We're not trying to make a PR point on this matter. If it's useful in bringing about a solution to this problem, if it can bring about the normal relationship to the right track, we don't have any problem as far as meetings. Face to face, I'm not scared to see the Prime Minister in the eye. I don't have any problem there. The second question is, Assab was a free port. Massawa was a free port to Ethiopia. This was declared early 1991. We believe these ports should be free not only for Ethiopia, for everybody else who wants to use them. That's our policy. It's not a problem of conflict. It wouldn't be a cause of any conflict. Any sensible person who believes that there is a country landlocked and one has gotten access to the sea, why shouldn't the complementarity of the interests of both countries demand or dictate the free use of these ports? And with globalization taking everyone else by surprise, I don't see why the issue of ports should become a problem. It's never been a problem since 1991. It's not a problem now. It wouldn't be any problem in the future. It was the Ethiopian government which boycotted our ports and shifted to Djibouti. We said it's their choice. They boycotted our airports and cut any ties between the two countries. It was not our choice, but it was dictated upon us and we had to accept it. They closed the borders earlier, 1997, with the assumption that trade liberalization between the two countries is not to the benefit of Ethiopia. Despite the fact that we disagreed, we accepted this conditionality. When they were putting police and militias across the border to control trade between the two countries, we were against the idea of controlling trade between the two countries. If a time comes when we have to open these borders and liberalize trade between the two countries, open the ports, airports for Ethiopia, the same thing for us, we wouldn't be losers. Neither would the Ethiopian people be losers in this circumstance. And we know what we are doing, we know where we are going, and we would be sensible enough to say that these ports don't have any meaning as far as Eritrea allowing Ethiopia is concerned. It would serve the long-term purpose of economic integration in the area. It would bring the two peoples together and closer. That's our conviction, and we will continue to work on that, even though we now are in a situation of conflict, and probably the situation of conflict is giving the impression that this is a conflict to stay for so many generations to come. I don't think that's going to be true.
كبرى سمعتنا بنايلوم معلتي مرباتنا عجيبكم كتكونوا تسفا قبر حتى رئيتو ونقفتا انت لكم اب voiceoferitrea.com توكسنا اب زمت سمون بخال مربات كساب نرخب دحان قنيو برخ سمون